everybody. Welcome back to another episode of EDH Takes. My name is Elijah Samuelson, and I'm joined here by my good friend and co-host, Spencer Cook.
Howdy, guys.
So, how you been doing, Spencer?
I've been okay, chilling. Got a good new car, but that's exciting, not scary, right? Haha.
Yeah, that sucks a lot.
No, it's exciting.
Yeah, for some people.
Yeah.
I just started school again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back in college, so that's been an
Stressful,
exciting change.
Right?
A little bit stressful, but the first week has put my mind at ease a little bit because if people don't know, I am 24, and I'm just going back into freshman level courses because I had taken some school before, like I'd taken some community college courses, and I had some credits under my belt from a tuition waiver I had when I was working at the college. And so I'm like this 24-year-old going back into the school filled with 18-year-olds, and I feel like 1,000 years old.
You feel like you're out of place?
And the classes are also pretty easy so far, seemingly. So,
what a better way to, distract yourself from the pitfalls of life than to talk about magic cards, though, Eli?
Yeah, or what better way to distract yourself from the pitfalls of Magic the Gathering than to better yourself and
in
go
real
back
life?
to school? Yeah.
True.
So that's been my trick. But yeah, today we have a subject that we wanted to talk about for a little while. It's something that fascinates at least me, Spencer. I don't know how you feel about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd say it. It's interesting to me, too. This was kind of a little bit of a pet topic of mine for a little bit. So, yeah, today we're going to be talking about tribal decks, tribal strategies in Commander, and more specifically, some of the pitfalls that come with that, and maybe some ways of building tribal decks that a lot of people may not be aware of.
Yeah, I don't know about you. Tribal has never been something that's particularly appealed to me. Mm-hmm. In most of my Magic playing career, I've had several tribal decks, but it's never been something that stood out to me as far as Commander. I think I had a standard humans deck in like Innistrad because Champion of the Parish is just
busted magic card.
Busto.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I've never really built a tribal deck myself. I can think of.
I think for myself, I have played a couple. Well, my first Commander deck that I built from scratch that wasn't a precon upgrade was a Maronar. It's a little hard to pronounce. Rat tribal deck, and I can say that I've had my tribal. I've played another tribal deck. I played Inala Wizards, and I've got some insight into it, but no, I'm not generally drawn to tribal strategies very often.
Oh, and pardon me, I forgot I should mention, I do currently have a tribal deck, but that is Chumbo Tribal, which is, if you're aware of that.
Yeah, Chumbo's not a creature type officially supported by Wizards of the Coast, unfortunately.
Well, it's as supported as some of the tribes we're going to talk about in this episode.
Yeah, and just
I won't spoil that.
Just to lend some explanation there. Chumbos are big burly men, from what I understand. If that is that accurate?
The Urban Dictionary gives the example of Vin Diesel being a chumbo.
Yeah.
So if that explains it.
Yeah. All right. Well, so do you want to kind of describe a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, Eli? Maybe get into our thesis statement.
Well, while we might not personally see the appeal of tribal decks, I can understand why people are drawn to tribal strategies, because many tribes are deeply supported by Wizards of the Coast in a variety of sets. Like there's been tribes, like I mentioned, human tribal, but you'll have Merfolk tribal. It's another big deck.
Another big one, yeah.
Vampires, dragons. Unfortunately, not werewolves. Maybe
upcoming.
Maybe soon.
This fall. But like you were saying, Eli, like it's very obvious. Like what those decks are trying to do, like they're not like subtle synergies. They're very abrupt. Like the commander says, all of your humans get this, and whenever you play a human, you get this.
To me, the poster child for tribal strategies would be Slivers.
Sure, yeah.
Because every sliver is just a creature that says, slivers have this. And it will be either an ability or some kind of anthem, some kind of tribal-related ability.
Yeah, an ETB or a static ability, whatever it is.
Your slivers do this, and so...
Each one of them buffs all of them.
That is a very on-rails and kind of easy-to-see synergy there. You're like, you play this sliver with this sliver, it does better things.
Yeah, the appeal to tribal strategies is very obvious when you look at things like slivers. It's like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, and, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, because they are both the creature and the creature payoff within themselves. So that's the easiest way to do it. Whereas other tribes might have a lot of creatures in that tribe, but not very many tribal payoff cards. And they'll have a few, maybe some anthems or something like that.
Yeah.
But nothing that involved, like nothing that
like more than just like kind of things that don't matter that much, I guess, right? I mean, I guess anthems matter. I'm not saying they don't, but not more deep synergies like
nothing flashier.
Yeah,
than that.
Nothing like whenever you play a sliver or something, you get to blow up a thing or something like that, or a scarecrow or whatever for that sort of stuff. But I think one of our main things we're going to be talking about in this episode is, I think, outside of those very, very, very like big tribes like slivers where like everything does things for everything, I think a lot of players will get too fixated on going all in their tribal theme, and then they end up playing a bunch of bad cards that maybe work when you have some of your payoffs out, but otherwise are maybe just kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, and I think slivers, even some bad sliver decks, are undeniably at least a little bit
good,
powerful,
right?
because of that baked-in synergy. And people can see that, can extrapolate that to mean that this deck is strong because it's a tribal deck. Tribal decks are just inherently good.
Mm-hmm. And I think, there's room in more decks than just tribal decks for tribal cards. I mean, we'll get to that later, but outside of tribal synergy specifically, you can play cards that have tribal payoffs. Like some of the best tribal cards don't require you to go all in on a tribal theme to get good use out of them, and we'll talk about that later, but that's something I really want to talk about. Yeah,
exactly. So, overall, most tribal decks kind of fall into this definition of, payoffs and creatures within that tribe.
Yeah.
And so your payoffs are really what are making your deck function together. It's not necessarily the creatures all the time.
Yeah, whenever an elf enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, or something like that. Like or whenever you cast an elf spell, draw a card, or like a creature that taps for a mana for each elf you control. Those are the payoffs, and then the other elves that aren't really giving you benefits for having a bunch of elves are the bulk, or just the regular creatures.
Yeah, so we had listed a group of the top tribal commanders that we found on EDH Rec, just to not saying anything, we just did the EDH Rec episode. We're just looking at, these are common tribal commanders.
Not drawing any conclusions from numbers in EDH Rec, just to have some cards to talk about.
Yeah, we just wanted to give some examples of the more popular tribal commanders, and those would be such as the Ur-Dragon, Edgar Markov, Morphon the Boundless being the anything tribal commander now.
Yep.
Gishath, the dinosaur commander. Krenko Mob Boss. You got stuff like Najila, Kalia the Vast, can kind of be one of 3 different tribes commander.
Yeah, Yuriko, stuff like that. Sir Gwyn. And the thing that all these tribal commanders have in common, and I don't just mean some of them, I mean all of them they have in common, is the commander always has a big payoff for playing those specific tribe. So, for example, in Edgar Markov's case, every time you cast one of the tribe, you get a free token creature, even if it's in your command zone. Mm-hmm. Yuriko, every time you hit someone with a member of the tribe, you get a free card at the top of your deck and damage to your opponents. Sir Gwyn, all of your creatures of the tribe have free equips. Gishath, every time you hit with Gishath, you get you get to put all dinosaurs from the top 7 or some 8 or whatever off the top of your deck onto the field. They all have very big payoffs.
So the common theme of these very popular tribes is often that they have a commander, like it's specifically a legendary creature that facilitates that strategy out of the command zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like vampires before Edgar Markov might not have been a very easy deck to make. Like I had known people who had like a Rakdos vampire deck, but what was your commander really for that? Like Olivia Voldaren.
And that's not really vampire synergy, really. It's just kinda
she's kind of a different. She wants you to do different things. Yeah, you would get bogged down in aesthetics and thematic building.
So I want, and there's nothing wrong with building for aesthetics and stuff like that. Like so maybe you want to make a Merfolk deck and not with a Merfolk like really big payoff Merfolk commander. That's fine. But I just want to make a distinction here. A very concrete distinction between tribal decks that are tribal because the commander pays off a tribe, and tribal because you want to play tribal payoffs in the deck. There's a big difference there because you always have access to your commander to benefit from your tribal cards, whereas if your tribe is not supported by a commander, or at least a commander that has a big payoff for the tribe, you're really just hoping you draw those payoffs.
It seems like a big uphill battle. Yeah, so the main thought is we don't think you need to play a bunch of just random tribal creatures in your tribal deck. Like your deck's not better by the amount of creatures you have that match the same tribe. That's not the thing that makes it work.
So I think you and I, Eli, would recommend that tribal decks, if you're going to play a tribal deck, one, you play a tribal deck with the a commander that facilitates that tribe. And two, you try to cut out the bulk members of the tribe that don't really do anything or don't kind of facilitate your strategy. So, for example, if you were playing like a bear deck or something and you wanted to make it as strong as you could, I don't think you would really want to play the maybe bear is a bad example, but like grizzly bears probably isn't going to be a good card for you.
If you love the aesthetics of it, that is fine, but
by all means,
you should not bog yourself down with being totally stuck to a theme.
Yeah. So maybe a better example is don't play the Merfolk cards that really would be just in your deck because they're a Merfolk and they don't really do anything else. Play the Merfolk cards that you would play in your deck because they're good cards.
On our last episode, we talked about the play more removal discussion and like how you might want to apply something like that. Like, I want to make sure I always draw my tribal creatures in my tribal deck, so I should play more creatures of that tribe.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think maybe you should just play more card advantage, more card draw, things, your bread and butter, like commander effects, tutors, clones even. Like if you... They don't work so great if that's like the first thing you draw into, but if you have your good tribal creatures out and you just play some clones in your deck, then you have another version of that good creature.
Yeah, I suppose, my best tribal creature, I think that has an effect when I play a thing of that tribe or whatever, right? I'd rather have 2 of those than that card and some bad tribal creature, right? That makes sense to me.
I have an Arcades the Strategist deck, which isn't necessarily a tribal deck. Like, you might want to say it's a wall tribal deck, but really it just cares about the keyword defender, which isn't a creature type.
Yeah.
And I'm playing, I think, at least 3 or 4 clones in that deck, just because I've got some good defenders in there, and that's how you get more of them. You don't just play like more. There's a lot of defenders in Magic. Most of them are not very good.
Yeah, so there's a couple defenders that kind of care about defenders. Like there's the wall that taps for mana equal to the number of walls you have, or creatures with defender, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that if you can copy that one, that's better than just playing another wall in your deck, I'd say.
Yeah, I do try and have most of the creatures in that deck have defender because, I mean, they do replace themselves. Yeah. So Arcades is an example of a commander that really does facilitate like a strategy. If you had a tribal commander... Like, going through our list, there must be one, but I'm not seeing any tribal commanders that are really just, when you play a creature of this tribe, like, draw a card.
Yeah, the commanders don't usually do that.
Draw a card.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done that as commonly with tribal decks.
Yeah, they usually just make, your tribal creatures do this, or, like, the commander, like, you get to cast tribal cards for less mana, or for free, or Krenko, you make a bunch of tokens... Or, even the cat and dog one, make tokens and stuff. Rin and Seri is that card's name. But yeah, Eli, going back to what you were saying a moment ago, I really do think that, making sure you have, maybe not ramp and card draw necessarily, but whatever you need to make your strategy run.
Now, if you can find creatures within that tribe that facilitate your ramp and your card draw, even better. Like, you should obviously do that, but you shouldn't replace those effects with more tribal creatures or more like tribal effects necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, and that even like transitions pretty well into this concept of some tribes just are better than others, and there's not really much you can.
They are not all created equal.
There are some blessed by Garfield tribes that just are able. It's just like what the tribes do is like the things you want to do in Commander. So, for example, if you're playing like a Wizards deck, you're going to be able to find good wizards that will do the card draw things that you want to do in Commander, right? So you're not going to have to look outside of your tribe for ways to make that part of your deck work.
Yeah.
Or something like elves, you're not going to have to look outside of elves to find ways to mana ramp in Commander. Stuff like that.
Or humans, the catch-all creature type of Magic, probably the most common creature type.
I don't have numbers on that, but I would not be surprised, certainly.
Well, there's only, as far as I recall, one plane of Magic that does not have humans on it, and that would be Lorwyn. So pretty much every set you're guaranteed to get human creatures.
Yeah, and at one point, like in the history of them designing cards like R&D, they had to be more careful with what kind of effects they put on human creatures because, just by the nature of something being... This is more for more constructed formats. By the nature of a card being a human, it just got that buff because there were so many good human payoffs like Champion of the Parish and stuff.
Yeah, because original Innistrad was one of the first times that they really put human tribal payoffs. Like, human was a tribe that existed, but it wasn't designed like Merfolk, like Lord of Atlantis. Like, there weren't cards that, like, said your humans get +1/+1, or when a human happens, do this,
So, I don't think humans are maybe as popular in Commander, but, certainly, like, you're going to be able to find... If you're trying to make a human tribal deck, you're going to be able to look through the Magic's history of humans and find hundreds of good Commander playable humans and not have to look for kind of bad ones to fit in.
Definitely. I've had a good humans deck, and I've seen good humans decks in Commander.
Yeah.
Samut is a very good humans commander.
Yeah, I don't see why not. But... yeah, so the concept of what we're kind of trying to talk about here is that you really don't have to play 60 tribal cards in a tribal deck. Really, you want to play... it of course depends on who the commander is and how your deck's constructed, but, your deck's going to be perfectly fine and function as a tribal deck with half that many tribal cards, or maybe less, maybe more.
And like we said, maybe if you're in... Elf tribal, wizard tribal, or human tribal. Some tribes, you can do this.
Yeah.
Vampire tribal with Edgar Markov, you can probably do it. I think there's builds of that deck that are just as many 1-mana vampires as you can play, so you can trigger Edgar as often as possible.
Yeah.
And just really hit the ground running.
But maybe if you're playing cleric tribal, there's a lot of really good clerics in Magic, right? Mm-hmm. There's limited cleric payoffs. There's the one that makes them cost less mana, and maybe a couple others that I'm forgetting. But really just play the clerics that are good cards. Don't play the bad clerics just because they're clerics.
Yeah, clerics will not draw you cards, and they will not ramp your mana, which we've talked about before. That's not the most important thing in the world, but you should still be able to play the game.
Yeah.
You want to take game actions other than just, I gain life.
I'm just trying to urge people to... you can do whatever you want, and as long as you know what you're getting into, you have my blessing to play whatever you want, okay? But I would suggest, if you're not trying to just do I'm putting all the clerics in my deck, which, you can if you want. If you're not just trying to do that, if you're trying to make a deck that, does what you want it to do, don't play, the vanilla or vanilla plus cleric cards. Play the ones that you would put in a deck if it wasn't a cleric deck. Or maybe even use cleric as kind of a tiebreaker. Like if it was a card that's maybe I'd play this in Commander. Oh, it's a cleric. Okay, I'll try that, right?
Yeah, as long as it's a little bit extra, it's...
As long as you're getting something out of it, right?
Speaking of the off tribes that just I can't wrap my head around.
There's a lot of meme tribes in Commander.
So, I'm a big Boros fan, and since I've been really into Boros, you'll see this thing all the time online or on gameplay videos like MTG Mudsta, Magic Online. You see it everywhere, and that would be Angel Tribal. And it's something, I get it, angels are cool, they look cool, but aside from aesthetic reasons, I've never understood what the appeal of Angel Tribal was.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, Eli. You and I both have done like a deep dive into what are the mechanical reasons to play Angel Tribal, like what cards will give you something from angels being in your deck. And there's a very small number of things that even matter.
Well, they don't hit a lot of the common beats that other popular tribes do, and Angel Tribal is surprisingly popular, but they're usually really high CMC. Yeah. So you don't like win a game, like usually tribal decks are you have a bunch of smaller creatures and you have a mass of them and then you anthem them with your payoffs.
It's hard to do the angel swarm kind of like you can't do like that tribal swarm and like buff all your cards of a specific tribe.
Yeah.
Well, you can, it just takes longer.
It's very slow to roll out a bunch of angels. So there's that, and they don't really have a good, like a real tribal payoff commander. I guess you could say maybe one of the Kalias or Lyra Dawnbringer, but those, I don't like the Kali example because Kali is just as much a Dragon Tribal or a Demon Tribal commander as she is Angel Tribal.
Yeah.
And Lyra Dawnbringer is an Anthem that gives lifelink. And so Anthems are, much better when you're doing it to a bunch of creatures. If you're playing an Angel and then playing Lyra and then an Angel the next turn, your Anthem is not...
You're hitting like one or two creatures, and maybe like it'll matter, like maybe if you do like a mass reanimation type effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Lyra is a mono-white commander. You really need to dip into black to start getting those mass reanimation effects, for at least the better ones, right?
Yeah, I would say tribal decks are often better with more colors.
Yeah, and one of the big problems with that concept is that there's not really many good Angel Tribal cards. Most of them, like 5 out of the 6 decent ones, have been printed in Kaldheim. And
very recent.
I think like 4 out of the 5 of them or 3 out of the 5, whatever, are in white and black, like they're multicolored cards. So you would need to be playing a 2-color commander deck, and you don't really have a Tribal Matters commander at the helm of that.
Yeah, so it's not like Slivers. It's not like you see 10 different cards that say angels do this, or whenever you play an angel, you get this, or angels get +2/+2.
Yep.
Angels cost 2 less.
There's one card that reduces their cost in the angel that makes them cost less.
Yeah, you have Kaldheim Aspirant from the... It's not even in the actual set. It's from the...
commander deck?
The theme boosters.
Theme boosters, yeah. And then there's an angel that, a card I like a lot that gives you life whenever an angel or a cleric enters battle under your control. Then you've got a couple of like saga. You got like a saga, and you got an enchantment where whenever that very one of them gives your angels like tap to
Furious Retribution.
Tap to kill a creature pretty much with less power as on the saga, and then double strike on the third thing. And then the other enchantment is whatever angel you control dies. It's an edict for your opponents.
Yeah, Rampage of the Valkyries.
Yep. But, I don't want to harp on Angel Tribal too hard, but there's not I just want to put Angel Tribal in the category of the other tribal decks that you can play and they make their things, but they're not really payoffs for them, right?
Well, this fascinated me, and so I didn't want to write it off completely just because I don't like it. So I knew at least a couple people who really like Angel Tribal, specifically Boros or Mono White Angel Tribal, and that would be PJ of Commander Replay, the YouTube channel, and Kristen Gregory from the Commander Advisory Group.
Yep.
And so I added them on Twitter to ask them for their insight into, aside from aesthetic reasons, what drew them to Angel Tribal. And PJ gave me a good, insightful answer. He said, "Flying is my favorite mechanic. Akroma and Rhea were insanely cool cards 15 years ago. I also played a Reanimator deck back then, and Rhea was a big part of it. Avacyn is probably also one of the coolest characters in the game. So I like that answer, although I'm not sure if he fully understood my question when I asked it, because two of those reasons in there are kind of aesthetic reasons, like saying that these are cool characters or I like them.
And I definitely agree with that. Like, you know, angels are cool, and that's sufficient reason to make a commander deck because you like the characters and stuff. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a good reason.
But we were trying to kind of find out like what the mechanical because like we're trying to make. We just couldn't find many mechanical reasons, and we were hoping that somebody that was playing angel decks, maybe there were some that we were just kind of overlooking, right?
Yeah. So flying is a good mechanic, and I like the answer about Reanimator because I also like Boros Reanimator. And if you're playing a classic Reanimator strategy in Boros, you want to do that by you rummage away like high CMC creatures or permanents, and then you reanimate them. So if you're playing a creature Reanimator strategy, it makes sense that you would want to reanimate the highest CMC creatures that you can find.
The biggest things, the things that are going to be the most impactful,
which
right?
in Boros or Mono White would often be angels.
So that kind of fits there, and then maybe I could see a situation where you make like a Boros Reanimator deck, and then you just put a couple angel synergy cards and use that as an excuse to play some more angels to reanimate. Like maybe you make your play that card we were talking about earlier where your angels cost 2 less, then you know maybe you can cast them when you don't reanimate them. Makes sense to me.
I think this deck design works kind of backwards, whereas most tribal decks you would see the payoffs and that's what makes you want to build the tribe.
Yeah.
This is, I want to play angels. How do I facilitate that? So I want to play angels, and I want to get as many out as I can. So the best way to do that, rather than cast a bunch of 5 to 8 CMC creatures, is I discard them, and then I reanimate them for cheaper. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So good answer from PJ. I appreciated him getting back to me. Kristen just answered, how long do you have, lol? So,
not much help there, but,
thanks, Kristen.
But... So I want to just talk about... I want to kind of put angel... I haven't been convinced thoroughly that angels are... I mean, like... What I'm trying to say is I feel like they fit... They show up more often than you would expect, I think, and they kind of fit in that kind of meme tribe kind of category as, like... I want to say hominids and stuff like that, but like it's obviously not that far. But tribal spiders or tribal berserkers or something, or
right, because there are at least many good angels.
There's good cards.
They're just not tribal based.
I don't know why we're ranting about angels for so long. I don't have a problem with angels.
It's just it's an obscene fascination I've had because I see people wanting to play Boros and they like angels and they think, well, I want to play angel tribal. I just want to play a bunch of angels, but that's usually not a very good deck.
Sure.
So it kind of takes something like Reanimator to tick it up to that thing. But PJ's reasons also for liking angel tribal, like the flying and Reanimator thing, could just as well be applied to Boros dragon tribal.
Sure.
So I don't know if there were more specific reasons for...
Or even just Boros Reanimator, and then you play, the good couple big angels, a couple big dragons, a couple big, like maybe some Eldrazi, right? Like that, and that would be a Boros Reanimator deck, not necessarily a Boros Angel Reanimator deck. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I guess maybe you get to play the generic tribal cards like Urza's Incubator.
We haven't mentioned those, and I feel like we would not be doing justice to tribal if we didn't mention them. There's a lot of colorless, generic, tribal payoff cards, like you said, Eli, Urza's Incubator. You got Vanquish's Banner, the Automaton.
Was it Herald's Horn?
Herald's Horn. There are a couple good payoffs that you play in a tribal deck.
Yeah, Wizards has done a good job, and a lot of these cards came around the time of Commander. What was it? 2018, 19?
I don't quite remember.
When they did the Eminence Commanders, the tribal decks?
Those were before then, I want to say. Because those came after...
2016.
No, they came after the 4-color Commanders. Right?
2017, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, 2017. And that was around the time of Ixalan Block, too, which was a good overlap because that had the vampires from that.
Yep.
So they put a lot of tribal stuff in Ixalan. They did a lot of tribal stuff in those Commander decks. And that helped to facilitate some underperforming tribes. Like Cat Tribal wasn't really a very viable thing before that.
No, not at all.
And dragons were, but not as much.
And they became good because they've made good commanders for those tribes.
Right, that's the thing that helps the most, I
think.
And
then they printed some good, cards that go in 99, but like mostly the commander is the important part, I think.
So I don't know if we get like a green white or a Naya angel that says your angels cost 2 less, or
or even just like I would personally like to see an Orzhov, or maybe even like a Abzan, maybe, I don't know, or maybe red. So color, no, not Grick. Wait, my brain's turning. White, black, red. Mardu. There we go. Maybe like a Mardu angel that said like, whenever an angel, attacks or something, you get some big effect. I don't know. Be cool.
Yeah, something.
Then I'd buy into Angel Tribal.
Something other than Kalia or Lyra would be
nice.
Because people clearly like Angel Tribal. So I could see, obviously, Wizards did acknowledge that in Kaldheim. They made some actual like Angel Tribal cards.
Oh yeah, and I play a Liesa deck, which isn't an Angel Tribal deck, but I do play the 2/4 that gains you life when you play an Angel, and the Furious Retribution, the Saga, because my commander's an Angel, so I just get that kind of synergy, and that kind of brings me into the next topic, which is where I'm going to talk about playing tribal cards in decks that aren't tribal decks. Before that, Eli, what do you say we hear a message from our sponsors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, I'm the Scarab God, and let me say, I wish someone told me I had to wear pants at the park. Thanks to MeUndies, I no longer have to worry about getting arrested for indecent exposure. And they're comfortable too. So comfortable, it makes it just a bit easier to have that awkward talk with my neighbors after I get out on parole next week.
Hey, I'm Vrondis, Rage of Ancients, and sometimes I get enraged. So enraged that I want to beat my wife and kids. That's why I turn to BetterHelp, so that when I get enraged, all I do is make dragon spirits instead of paying tribute to Chris Benoit.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I just hate that joke of Commander with a subtitle, haha, that's the joke. I just hate it so much.
I mean, we can be kind of edgelords sometimes, but personally, I don't know, BetterHelp and like mental health stuff, it's not a fucking joke.
Yeah.
Josh Lee Kwai. Might be funny to you.
Come on. But yeah, like I promised, I want to talk about some tribal cards, and maybe even strategies that can go in decks without a tribal theme to the deck.
Well, yeah, let's work this backwards, because you could take a commander that is a tribal commander or is to facilitate a tribal strategy, and just not do that.
And like that's kind of so. Give me an example, Eli. Give me a card. Give me a commander that you're thinking of.
Well, I have a Verena Lich Queen deck, and you could see that commander and think, this is your de facto Esper zombie commander, and it's got your payoff for playing zombies, it makes zombies, but mainly, when I built that deck, I was thinking of making an Azorius tokens deck, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, wait, I want to play some black cards in here too, because there's some really good, like, black token makers, which are usually zombies. And I saw Verena, and I was like, well, she's kind of the whole engine within herself, because she lets you do looting when you attack with just her, and then you create zombies from her, which lets you get more zombie attack triggers.
Yeah, so and the thing I want to point out about with your deck, I think I'm familiar with it enough to talk about it. You don't really play very many zombie cards in the deck. Like, there's some, and there's a couple like zombie payoffs that are just kind of like good because you can make zombies. Like, I think you have Crypt Breaker in there, maybe, or do you take it out?
I may have taken that out, but I did at one point have Crypt Breaker, and I also had the Stitcher Supplier, just to get more mills to make more zombie tokens, and I've got some reanimation.
I think you had like Newscraft Mob or something.
Still have Newscraft Mob. Love Newscraft Mob.
Do you have any other payoffs for zombies in there?
No, I don't believe so. Nothing that says like no zombie anthems, no zombie lords.
They wouldn't be bad in the deck, per se. Like, you could probably play them if you wanted to, but they're not necessary, right?
Right. Some of them are good.
The commander as the payoff is enough, you'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see
definitely.
you there. All right. Similarly, like I said just before, my Liesa deck, I've got 2 cards in there that synergize with angels, and pretty much is just so you can cast your commander who's an angel, right? And because you always have access to your commander. And another idea is like you can play like a Risen Reef in a deck, and then if your commander's like an elemental or something, like maybe an Omnath or whatever, like that's just going to be a good. I mean, you can play Risen Reef in a deck without elementals. Honestly, that's just a good card. But there's this idea of playing like they're just being good incidental elementals that you can kind of put in your deck because you have a Risen Reef, and not too many of them, but just to list off a couple that you might play anyway. Avenger of Zendikar, Clone Effects are really good with Risen Reef. You have the Incarnation cycle from Modern Horizons 2, the Evoke cards. They're all elementals. You have the Cavaliers cycle.
I love the Cavaliers.
Cards like Green Warden of Marasa, Muldrifter, Nyxblood Ancient, Revelark. These are just a lot of cards that, might go in your deck anyway.
Yeah, man. Elementals is kind of one of those tribes like humans where it's got a lot of good effects.
So if you find yourself playing 4 or 5 elementals in your deck, maybe Risen Reef is a card that you can slot in there and just say, I've got this kind of elemental package a little bit, Mm-hmm. And that's something I love talking about, this idea of like a package. But we'll get to that in a moment. Eli, do you want to talk about some other tribal cards that are stronger on their own, but they're good with support?
Yeah, we made a list of other popular tribal effects or tribal-related cards that I wanted to touch on. You mentioned the Risen Reef, and I wanted to mention Magda Brazen Outlaw because I've seen Magda, like it was played on game nights,
yeah.
and how our good friend Jimmy Wong built that deck was, man, I'm gonna play a bunch of dwarves because when they tap, I get more treasures, and then I can do the Magda thing. A lot of dwarves are really bad, Jimmy.
That's unfortunate. Yeah,
that's 7 dwarves is not a good card. It might be a good meme. Questionable.
I'll give it a good meme. I'll give it a good meme. Seal of approval.
But I've been playing with Magda in at least one of my decks, and is that not good enough? So it's a 2-mana 2/1. When it taps, or you could just, even just attacking with it will tap it, you get a treasure. That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Maybe play 1 or 2 other treasure support cards in your decks, which you have now. You have Dockside Extortionist, you have Smothering Tithe.
It's like a Captain Lannery Storm that has some incidental synergy with a couple dwarfs, maybe. There might be a couple dwarfs you
There's
play.
2 equipments that make you treasures, and yeah, that just seems good enough to me. So maybe if you have a couple of other good dwarves, you might play them alongside of that. But Magda does not need dwarf support to be a good card.
Yeah, you've got like is the farmer a dwarf? The white card.
Stoic Farmer is a dwarf.
That's a dwarf. You got Durgar Hedge Mage, just off the top of my head. Maybe, and those are 2 cards you could just.
We
play
recently
in there.
got Priest of Ancient Lore, which is a cool white dwarf. That's the one that ETB
that?
draws you a card and gains you a life.
Oh yeah, maybe if you're playing a Hoffrey deck, Hoffrey Ghostforge, which is a dwarf itself, and it kind of has this buff to spirits, then you make spirits when.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Magda in a Boros deck where you have Dockside and Smothering Tithe, and maybe some ways to tutor those.
And also Hoffrey is a dwarf, so I mean you do get that kind of synergy with your commander or something. Same with Cole the Forge Master. Maybe you'd put Magda in a Cole deck because he would attack. And you get the thing. You don't need a lot of synergies to make it work.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say Magda Dwarf Tribal. Don't love it.
Well, there's a lot of dwarfs that are good, actually. Torbran, SRAM, whatever. We'll stop there for now.
But we also wanted to mention the card Mindblade Render, which is a cool card out of the Battle Bond set. It's a 2-mana 1/3 black warrior.
Yep.
An Azra warrior, I think.
Yeah, it's an Azra, which are these purple guys from the Battle Bond set or something.
And how's that card read exactly, Spencer?
So it says, whenever a warrior deals combat damage to an opponent, so it doesn't have to be your warrior. If someone else happens to have a warrior and they hit an opponent with it, it says you draw a card and lose a life. And this is for each warrior as well. So on its own, it's a 2-mana 1/3 that if it hits somebody, you draw a card and lose a life. So it's kind of in that kind of Bob kind of thing. I mean, it does have to get in early. If you play it on 2, you're probably able to get in. Maybe later you can, maybe not. But it also lets you just kind of play these good warrior cards in your deck that just happen to be warriors. You can play like a small warrior package. Some good examples that I've come up with are Okame Adversary as another card that'll draw a card when it hits somebody, and it has Death Touch, and it's 2 mana if your opponent has a green permanence, I believe. So if you have just a Mindblade Render and an Okame Adversary out, you get in with both of them, you draw 3 cards.
So Mindblade Render reminds me, I wanted to bring up Najeela, the Blade Blossom, as another example of a commander that's kind of an engine all on its own, because the best versions of Najeela decks are not built warrior tribal.
No.
They are built very competitively because it is a 1-card engine that is very strong.
And they might play efficient. A couple... I think they do play Mindblade Render because just as a way to draw a bunch of cards and stuff like that.
Yeah, you might play a couple of
warrior payoffs.
Incidental warriors, but they're there because they're good warriors.
Yeah, another thing you can play with Mindblade Render is Champion of Lamholt, which is a 3-mana 1/1, and he's a warrior. I think he's a druid warrior. I don't quite... Whatever. Human warrior, whatever he is. You see, there's the human tag coming out all the time. He says, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it might be non-token, I don't quite remember, he gets a counter, and then it says, your opponents cannot block creatures you control with less power than Champion of Lamholt. So he kind of synergizes with Mindblade Render because he lets him get in for that damage to get the draw. And, he also is an incidental warrior. So also there's a couple, like the Edict creatures, some of them are warriors. There's some other, like if you play a warrior commander, that kind of fits. So I really like Mindblade Render, and I would recommend if you find yourself wanting to play that kind of hit people strategy from like a 2-drop or something, like if you want something like a Bob in your deck, maybe try out Mindblade Render and do a Gatherer search or a Scryfall search to see what kind of good warriors are in your colors and see if any of them fit in your deck.
Yeah, definitely. We've mentioned Righteous Valkyrie so far, but even outside of Angel or Cleric decks, we think that's a pretty solid card. You don't have to gain the life from its ability. If you have any other kind of lifelink or life gain in your deck, you can get it up to your life total to that 47 plus, and your creatures get +2/+2.
So I have an experience that I had recently last week with a Righteous Valkyrie that I'd like to share that I don't think I've even told you about yet, Eli. I was playing Righteous Valkyrie in a game. I played it in my Liesa deck, and my opponent, they ended up reanimating it, and then copying it multiple times and gaining a ton of life and having all of their creatures attacking with for a lot of power. And then in that same game, another player Rite of Replicationed my Righteous Valkyrie that someone else had control of, and they ended up gaining, I think it was about, I don't know the exact math, but I think it was about 100. They went up to like 100 life, 120 life, 140 life, and they had a bunch of creatures that were like about 10 power and 12 toughness. So if you're playing a deck with Rite of Replication, it's kind of similar to Rite of Replicationing Gary, except it doesn't end up draining everybody, but it will gain you a ton of life because they'll all enter the battlefield, and then once you get up to above your set 47?
Yeah.
Once you get up to above 47, they'll all buff each other, and they'll all have like 14 toughness, and all gain you
really
14
cool.
for each one they see, so you'll start gaining a ton of life.
Yeah, I Rite of Replication somebody's Thunderfoot Baloff one time.
And it's kind of like that,
all my creatures +10/+10, so that seems
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. Another, just to mention really quickly, there's the couple of these are cards that are very clearly tribal cards, Pyre of Heroes and Kindred Discovery. But at least in Kindred Discovery's case, you don't even need to play tribal. You don't need to play a tribe for that. Like you make all your creatures a tribe, and then you draw a card when you attack, right? That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, or you pick your most common token that you make.
Yeah, like maybe an Avengers Zendikar, you make a bunch of plant tokens or something, and then you draw a bunch of cards. Or with Pyre of Heroes, this is the what do you call it?
Birthing pod.
The birthing pod.
Yeah.
You can maybe you're playing a 2-mana commander in your deck, right? Maybe put Pyre of Heroes in your deck, and then put a couple of creatures at 3, 4, 5, 6 mana that are the same tribe as your commander, so you can always have a thing to birthing pod, your commander into. Maybe have a package in your deck for that. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, or if you just have a couple of changelings even.
Yeah, you can get anything in your
deck. Works great. And then there's this one really weird card that's also from a theme booster we wanted to mention, and that is Deathbellow Warcry. This is a really weird card. It is an 8-mana sorcery, and it says, search your library for up to 4 Minotaur creatures and put them onto the battlefield.
It's kind of... I mean, I haven't played it yet, but I will be in the future, because this card just kind of seems sick to me, like in a cool way. There's a decent number of just good Minotaur cards that aren't Minotaur synergy cards that you can kind of just play in a lot of your red-containing decks. And I think if you want to try to make Deathbellow Warcry work, you can fit in, well, let me just name some of the, you wouldn't want to play a ton of Minotaurs, right? But maybe 4 or 5. Even if you're drew some of your Minotaurs, and then you only get to search for 2 or 3 creatures off of your Deathbellow, Warcry, I think that's enough, right?
Well, let's say I just get Neheb the Eternal, and the Morag, Fury of Akum.
Yep.
That's 11 mana worth of creatures.
And 2 cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if that's not the case, you also have the other Neheb, the other red Neheb. You've got the, Mogus... Oh, God. The Mogus Marat. No, that's the black one. There's a Mogus card that's a 4-mana 4/2.
Disciple of Mogus.
Disciple of Mogus. And normally this isn't a card that you would play in a lot of decks, but it says when it enters the battlefield, each opponent takes damage equal to your devotion to red. Now, if you're searching for 4 Minotaurs, and that's one of them, you're gonna have 8, 10 red pips, depending on what you already have on board. That's just 10 damage each opponent. Seems good to me. You've got this one is a tribal synergy card. This is Sethron. And what he says is whenever it or another non-token Minotaur enters battlefield under your control, you get a 2/3 Minotaur token. Then he has an activated ability where he can buff your Minotaurs and give him menace or something like that. And on his own, he's just a 5-mana 4/5 that comes with the 2/3, which is okay. But if you search him out your deck with these other 3 Minotaurs, he ends up making 4 Minotaur tokens, and then whenever they get to attack, you can make them all have menace and kill somebody. Seems good, a good package, right?
Yeah, I want to find a way to play this card. I think I'd play it if I had at least 4 Minotaurs
in the deck,
or Changelings in the deck.
Yeah, and you can also, if you run out of Minotaurs, like you said, Eli, you can put a couple Changelings in the deck and get those. Mm-hmm. So what other tribe do you know of that lets you just search your library for multiple cards of that tribe and put them on the battlefield? I don't think there's that one green card that lets you set you get rid of all of your creatures and then you get to flip until you get that many of that tribe or something. You know what I'm talking about? There's a 6-mana Kindred Discovery, something like that. No, that's the
blue one.
Kindred something. It's the green
Kindred Summons.
Kindred Summons, like that, but that doesn't do something out of nowhere. I don't think there's any other tribal cards that just are just one card that just puts 20 CMC of creatures in play, right? From your deck.
But this one they're oh, it's just Minotaurs. What's the worst they could do with it?
Yeah.
We've got some pretty good Minotaurs now.
Yeah, and imagine if you play this and you have a haste enabler. This could just kill the table.
Honestly, finisher, like you were saying with Disciple of Mogus.
Yeah. No, I mean even if you have haste, you have Disciple of Mogus. You have the one that makes a bunch of Minotaur tokens, and then you have the one that makes you mana. You attack with them all. Play a land post main phase, or you attack with them all. Yeah, you play a land post main phase, get to attack again because you have Morag. This kills everyone, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested in this card. I want to try it out.
So I think between that and Mindblade Render, we kind of touched on the idea of putting a tribal package in your deck, which is something that you like doing a lot, Spencer, and you did with your Cheville deck on Magic Online.
Yeah, I had that Mindblade Render tribal package in there. But also, I don't want to monopolize the mic here, Eli. I want to let you talk about stuff. But something that I'm really passionate about is my first commander deck I said earlier in the episode was a Rats deck, right? And Wizards also agrees with this idea, or at least they've shown that they like this idea of putting a tribal package in deck.
Somebody likes it.
Somebody designing the commander decks likes it, because in the Adventures of the Forgotten Realms Prosper Tomebound deck, they put a 3-card rat package in that deck, none of which are actually rats, which is kind of funny, but there's Ogre Slumlord, Chittering Witch, and Piper of the Swarm. And all 3 of these cards are both setup and payoffs for themselves, for rats, for each other as well, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. The Chittering Witch and Ogre Slumlord they don't have any like real payoff for having rats, like the Slumlord anthems them, doesn't
No, it gives them Death Touch.
It gives them Death Touch.
So that's something.
But then the Piper of the Swarm is also another card that's just good on its own. It's 2 mana, 1/3, I think.
Yep.
Gives your rats menace, and you can pay 2 mana and tap it to make a rat, or you can pay 4 mana and tap it and sacrifice 3 rats to gain control of a creature.
Yep, so you just seal something permanently. And you might think, okay, that's really slow. I have to activate it like 3 times to be able to get enough rats to be able to do that. But the other 2 cards in the deck that care about rats are able to make with Piper of the Swarm, or sorry, not just Piper of the Swarm, Chittering Witch makes 3 rats right away, and Ogre Slumlord makes a rat whenever anyone's creatures die. So they're able to fuel each other. And Piper of the Swarm is just like a better Siege Gang Commando. I mean, not strictly better.
The Chittering Witch?
Sorry, the Chittering Witch. It doesn't hit players, but it's a 4-mana Siege Gang Commander.
Yeah.
That's sweet. So
pretty cool.
I really
nice
like
package.
this idea, yeah. And I remember listening to the Command Zone deck upgrade, and they're like, nah, we're taking this out. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I get it, but come on. Come on, bro. Eli, I know you're a big fan of Changelings. We should mention them. We should talk about them.
Yeah, to round this out, we wanted to throw out some good Changeling cards so that you can play those instead of bad creatures of your chosen tribe, if it's one of those kind of meme tribes or angel tribal or...
Yeah, like if you're playing Risen Reef, you want to put Risen Reef in a deck, maybe put, Masked Vandal or something, right?
Yeah, we recently got Mask Vandal. That was one that a lot of people were really overhyping, but honestly, it's not bad. It's just not better than Reclamation Sage.
You really have to want the tribal part of it, I think, for it to the Changeling part, for you to want to play it, in my opinion.
Yeah, we got the Moraid of Frost.
That's the clone that turns into a shapeshifter, and I think it gets 2 +1/+1 counters or something.
Yep. Torian Mauler, which if you know
Managorger Hydra.
Managorger Hydra, it's worse than that, but it's still
Changeling,
still pretty good.
Yep.
Chameleon Colossus is one I like a lot because that just can get huge.
It's got pro black, so you can sometimes get in and kill people.
And it's a 4-mana 4/4.
Yeah, love it.
And then Unsettled Mariner out of Modern Horizons 1. Really cool card. Kind of gives sort of ward to your creatures.
Yeah, ward before ward.
Grave Shifter is a grave robber. That's a changeling.
You could maybe consider
decent.
It.
And the best one, Mirror Entity.
Oh, it's so good. We talk about Mirror Entity like every episode.
And, this is an easy thing to forget on Mirror Entity because its ability is so good as an overrun, but when you use it, it actually changes the creature type of every creature you control.
To all creatures.
Changeling, yeah.
Changeling. So if you're maybe you have that rat package in a deck and you have Mirror Entity and you maybe need to you have your one that needs to steal something. You really need to steal something from an opponent. You can turn all of your creatures into rats and then sack them and steal something. Like it facilitates so much. I love Mirror Entity. And then I just to mention like 1 or 2 more. I mean, they're like if you're really, I don't recommend this, but in some decks it makes sense. There's the 1-mana 1/1 artifact creature that has a changeling ability. I don't remember what it's called, but if you're playing something like Yuriko, where you really just want to have that tribe so you can hit someone and get that free card off it, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, if you're playing that kind of commander that really has a big payoff for your tribe, but not that many creatures in that tribe, you might want to do that.
Yep.
Like Aula, the bear commander.
Sure.
That's a very strong bear payoff, but you
Not
have to
good.
play bears.
You play bears. So if you honestly, a lot of the changelings, which are generally less powerful because they have to kind of account for the fact that they can be any creature type. Most changelings are stronger than most bears.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's most of what we got to talk about for tribal synergies. I tend to not go towards tribal decks, but I love playing tribal packages. That's my thing I want you to get out of how I feel about this sort of stuff.
Yeah. In closing, be wary of the tribal trap.
Yeah, the tribal trap, which is the playing a bunch of bad cards. Don't play bad cards. Play good cards. You'll be happy. Or when you play bad cards, know you're playing bad cards.
Yeah, so we were talking about meme tribal earlier.
Yeah.
And it seems that Wizards has jumped into the meme game a little bit with the Universes Beyond thing.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this in probably a long time ago on the show with the Walking Dead stuff. But they recently had their product lineup for 2022.
They had a show hosted by, I think it was hosted by Jimmy, right?
Jimmy and Joe Johnson.
That's cool.
Of
yeah.
I Hate Your Deck.
They both hosted the Wizards conference or stream, the Twitch stream, whatever they did, right?
Yeah.
And they showed us the stuff they're going to be doing in 2021, some Secret Lair product announcements, the sets that are coming out, and Eli, there was a lot to unpack from that, right? There's a lot for Magic players to be unhappy about, I'd say.
A lot of this was stuff that we were aware of already, such as the Universes Beyond Warhammer Commander decks next year, and the Lord of the Rings set.
Which is just to let you guys know, if you're not aware of it, the Lord of the Rings set is a straight to modern set, so it's the same legality as cards from the Modern Horizons sets. So legal in Modern, Legacy, not legal in Standard or Pioneer or anything.
And those will be containing functionally unique cards. Those will be new cards.
Yep. The Fortnite Secret Lair is reprints of cards with Fortnite art. The Street Fighter Secret Lair is functionally unique cards. But they made a statement saying that whenever they're going to do functionally unique cards in a Secret Lair set, they would be reprinting those as Magic cards in the list within 6 months, I believe they said, and they said they were going to make them more common than most list cards.
If you don't know what the list is, it's this group of cards that you can randomly get within Standard or
set boosters, I think.
Or, yeah, any kind of set booster, I think, because I got a couple in my Modern Horizons boosters.
They're kind of rare, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, they're pretty rare, and a lot of the times they're just bad cards.
Yeah.
There's, really random... There's a random conspiracy card in there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the cards on the list don't have any value.
What do you think of I mean, they said they were going to make them more common, make these, when they do the reprints of what do you think of this idea of appeasing the Walking Dead Secret Lair kind of things by making other versions of those cards and putting them in the list? Do you think that's a good solution?
Well, it is better than nothing. I think the solution is just, at least with most of the Walking Dead cards, I think the solution is just try and make those cards bad cards.
Yeah.
And not really, you might make a card for they used to do the Planeswalker decks or the starter decks.
Yeah, those were all terrible, yeah.
They designed those to purposefully be bad cards, and they were legal in Standard, but those Planeswalker deck Planeswalkers were designed to not be actually playable in Standard, because then they would become too expensive and people would buy out that product.
And that's one of the players' biggest concerns with, at least I've been frequenting I'm a Modern player, so I go on the subreddit and stuff like Modern Magic, and a lot of players have been posting recently being very upset about the Lord of the Rings set because it's going straight to Modern and stuff, and there are some concerns there. Something Wizards did say in accordance to that is that it's not supposed to be like Modern Horizons, where they make cards with a goal to be playable in Modern. They specifically said that they are going to be making Lord of the Rings as a lower power level set, not a set aimed for Modern. They're not trying to make it playable for Modern. But the problem is, maybe some cards end up being good in Modern, and people are very unhappy with the idea that, you might see something like Bilbo Baggins or whatever in a Modern deck. They might be very unhappy with that.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to test for that in a large set.
Yeah.
But within the secret layers, the functionally unique cards, I think that's a small enough amount of cards that it should mostly be pretty easy to keep an eye on. Like I said, those Planeswalker deck Planeswalkers, they never had an issue with one of those being actually played in Standard.
Yeah, and I think people were being a little bit too alarmist about, there's that joke that people make that I really dislike, because it just kind of, people just keep saying it. It's, oh, next year I'm going to attack you with my Barbie, and I'm going to be playing Modern, and you're going to block with your Elmo, right? And I just don't see it. I mean, maybe if it happens in the future, I guess I'll bite my tongue, but I don't see it happening.
Well, you keep up with other formats outside of Commander more than I do. I've maybe seen people saying that Rick has been played
in Legacy a little bit, I think, yeah.
But Fringe, right?
Fringe, yeah.
So
maybe one copy in a Humans deck or something, yeah, I think.
These cards are real, and it's a reality that it hasn't happened.
Well, and people are worried because it's like a slippery slope kind of thing, right? Like, if they keep doing more and more, there's that thought that eventually it will happen, right? Or it's heading that direction. What I expect out of the Lord of the Rings set, and in the future, if they continue to do this thing where they make it so it's not trying to make it like powered for the format, there might be a couple Lord of the Rings cards that show up in a Modern deck, a Tier 2 deck, Tier 3 deck, and maybe a couple sideboard cards that show up, maybe. But outside of that, I don't think it's not gonna be warping the format around some other IP. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Right, and so this upcoming year of Magic products, a lot of people lately have been complaining about product fatigue.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, those are the same people who are complaining about a series of products not aimed towards them.
So you mean stuff like all these IPs and like the...
Yeah.
And like maybe like one of the new sets they're coming out with next year is the Kamigawa like 2,000 Years Later set, which is like supposed to be kind of like... I think of it kind of like Evangelion. I don't know why. This is what it...
Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
Yeah, it's just because it has neon in its name, so I think of whatever. Neon Genesis Evangelion. But I think a lot of players are maybe unhappy with that direction of Magic, right? But the thing is, Eli, you were looking at the year, and you would notice that like that might be the first half of the year, but the second half of the year is like bangers for like those kinds of players, right?
For classic Magic players who really love old school, normal Magic, the second half of the year is a Return to Dominaria, and then a set dedicated to the lore of the Brothers' War, which is real old school Magic.
That's like the pinnacle of cool old school Magic lore to me.
Yeah, and that seems appealing to me.
I'm excited for that, yeah.
And I'm fine. I never cared for original Kamigawa. The new one doesn't look that appealing to me. I'm sure there'll be good cards in it, but I don't mind having a couple sets off. I mean, we got Innistrad this fall. Like, that's already my thing. So, Return to Kamigawa or the Streets of New Capenna or whatever that's called.
Yeah, the
that modern... doesn't look that interesting.
So maybe, yeah, like you were saying, Eli, maybe Magic or Wizards, making a couple sets that aren't, for me or for, some Magic players, like they're not aimed at you. Maybe that's a good thing because, maybe it gives you some time off of caring about every set that comes out. That's good, I think, maybe. Yeah,
so that's in defense of these, what some people might call cringe products.
And I don't necessarily even disagree that they're cringe. Maybe they are. That's fine.
One of the arguments for stuff like Universes Beyond or like the Fortnite Secret Lair has been that it might help get new players into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I can accept that, but I did see a decent rebuttal on Magic Twitter. Somebody was talking to Pleasant Kenobi about this, and they brought up what I thought was a good point, that the Fortnite Secret Lair, some people had been saying, oh, this, my nephew or my son likes Fortnite. This might get them interested in Magic. But Secret Lairs really aren't the product to bring in new Magic players. They're kind of for invested Magic players.
Yeah, unless you're like buying it to like put on your shelf or something. I don't know why a player that doesn't play Magic would buy like a Secret Lair product, right?
Yeah, it's a limited time collectible premium product.
I think really the types of products that are going to be bringing players in are standard legal sets like the D&D set they just did. Like that makes sense. Maybe bring in some D&D players for a whole set on D&D, or commander decks like they're doing with the
Warhammer 40K and Lord of the Rings. I think those are the way, if you wanted to do that, that's the way you should do it. But at the same time, I think that almost upsets people more than the Fortnite thing, because they're thinking this is a whole set. Like this is a big deal. This is more likely to affect the actual game of Magic.
And I think I heard somewhere that, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard somewhere that potentially maybe the Lord of the Rings set could be like a replacement for the slot that Modern Horizons 3 might have been.
Ooh, that'd make people real mad.
I'm not sure if that's true or not, but like if that's the case, like, and that's something to talk about, right?
Well, I'd be mad at any set that replaced Modern Horizons 3.
Because that's awesome. Modern Horizons is based.
Well, we just had Modern Horizons 2, so...
Yeah, I'd be okay taking a break
for
a while. There can be another one.
You can wait a year on that.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to this whole product lineup, Eli?
The sky's not falling yet. I get it. People have made that, like you were saying about the my Barbie gets attacked by Elmo or whatever. That thing is... It seems like the predictions for that are coming true to people who believe that.
Yeah.
It feels like they might feel that like they're vindicated, but just wait and see how the game of Magic actually changes.
Yeah.
Because, albeit these cards will be
playable
in some formats, I'm going to say, like, they've had stuff like the My Little Pony, like the silver bordered cards that have existed before.
Yeah.
And you don't see those that often, even in, like, Commander, with people asking you to play them. Like, we really...
Yeah.
I've only
seen one Walking Dead Commander deck before. One person play a Walking Dead Commander. Or two if I count online content watching that. And I've seen 2. Or 3. But I don't think people are playing them very much. Maybe, and if they do, is it that big of a deal?
Whatever. I don't think most of those cards... Like, I guess... Negan's kind of okay. I don't think any of those cards are that great.
I like Glenn. That's just me.
Yeah, Glenn's okay.
But yeah, so the sky hasn't fallen down yet. Like you said, don't be Chicken Little. Something like that. Does that reference make sense?
If you're going to complain about product fatigue, don't get mad when things aren't for you. That's literally, like, what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Is to take a freaking break. Like,
yeah.
Just chill and just wait. You don't have to spend your money on stuff you think is cringe.
Oh, also one more thing I want to mention is that a mantra that I like to take is, well, first of all, I try not to get mad at things, right? I try not to have any hate in my heart. but you know, when that doesn't work, I try not to get mad at things before they happen. I don't really have any effect over the Magic product they come out with, and I'm not going to get mad at the Secret Lair stuff until I actually see the things that I would be mad at. Like, if you know, maybe if I see a Fortnite cards or whatever, like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cringe. But like, before it comes out, like when they're just announcing it, I don't really need to worry about that yet, personally. I don't need to take to all my social media accounts and start yelling about it. I don't need to, you know, it doesn't need to occupy my mind until it needs to. So that's just me, but yeah, I think that's what we got about, right, Eli?
Yeah, this has been a fun episode.
I hope that our microphones have not been echoey in this episode. We've been trying to do some stuff. I don't know what was dealing with that before.
Yeah, we tried out the box of silence on what we think is the bad microphone. So hopefully this one turned out better. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at EDH Takes. Please give us a like, a comment.
Yep.
Subscribe. If we could get to 100 subscribers, that'd be
epic.
That'd be epic.
Then we can start some shits with some Magic players. That's our number. Then we can start
we can do
shit.
It. Yeah.
No, but yeah, we're gonna have probably a new tier list video coming out pretty soon. I'm sorry, I know everyone loves those. So, well, not everyone, but you know, those get a lot of views. So I might try to get some more of those out just to appease people. But we do like doing the podcasts a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you for listening. I've been Elijah Samuelson.
I'm Spencer Cook.
See you next time.